Good in African print too, right?
Well, it's an African outfit, I should
Yes,
say.
yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes. Good.
had to do that for
And so,
Africa.
and Philip is very good at that as well.
Yeah.
Every time I don't think I've ever seen Philip wearing like a Western type shirt. Or yeah,
Actually, he does.
he does, huh?
Yeah.
But not often. But I always see him in African, some form of African print. So
Well,
that's
he
good.
tries. He
Yeah,
tries. He
yeah.
tries. He's a Pan
As
Africanist.
a Pan Africanist, that's good. That's good. And you played
Anyway,
me my song too.
yes, I played your
African
song.
Yeah, yeah, that's my song.
It's a great song,
It's a very
Buga, isn't
danceable
it?
song, and it's good for us to have all of this. Good to
Good.
be back another Wednesday.
So this afternoon with the Drive Doctor, we'll be looking at hypertension. We started that conversation last
Last
week. Elevated blood pressure.
Right.
I know we've discussed this subject a couple of times, but we cannot talk about it enough. Education on non-communicable diseases like hypertension and diabetes cannot be overemphasized. Now, the Drive Doctor today will be educating us on some more on hypertension, with key focus on its complications and how debilitating it can be. Now, why are we having this conversation again and again and again? Yeah? Well, just so you and I can be well informed to make very good health choices and live healthily. Now, before I hand over to Dr. Asafo, let me share some information with you, some stuff I came across while preparing for this show. I hope by now you know and understand that hypertension or elevated blood pressure is a serious medical condition that significantly increases the risk of heart, brain, and kidney diseases. Yeah? Well, if you don't know, you do now. It's also estimated that 1.28 billion adults aged 30 to 79 years worldwide have hypertension, and most, that's 2/3, live in low and middle income countries like ours. Now, here's the part that really got me worried. I found out that an estimated 46% of adults with hypertension are unaware that they have the condition.
That's over 600 million people.
Wow. Now, to make matters worse, less than half of adults, 42%, with hypertension are diagnosed and treated. And sadly, only 1 in 5 adults, that is 21%, with the condition, are under control.
Kwame, that's a damning statistic.
Absolutely.
So even for those that we know,
Yeah?
only 1 in 5 have it under control.
Holy. Well, hypertension seems so common a condition. Its diagnosis is also not complicated, like Doc has explained a number of times, but it remains a major cause of premature death worldwide. Well, today we'll focus on complications that come with hypertension, and again, it's not to scare us, but to also make us aware so we can make informed choices when it comes to our health. So, Doc, thanks a lot for coming by again. We're really grateful. This is a very important topic. Last week we had people sending in messages and asking questions. Today as well, if you're listening, you can send in a question or any query you have on 055 1111997. Okay, or we are live on Facebook. You can check out the video and put your questions there, Doc.
Right, Kwame, thank you. And those are very, very worrying statistics that you put out there. So absolutely right. And these are WHO figures. So can see you did your homework well. Most of the time we trivialize hypertension. So let me go over a few important points and then we'll open the phone lines, because just from last week, the questions that we got coming in, we realized that I think a lot more people have questions about the disease. And I think if we go about it, answering their questions, we'll do a better job at treating the topic. So number one, hypertension is a global disease. It affects people of all races. It cuts across all social stratifications and also economic stratifications. So everybody can suffer it. Sometimes it even happens in children, but mainly in adults. There are 2 types. We have the primary hypertension and then you have the secondary hypertension. The primary or essential hypertension, we say there is no cause, no known cause, but then there are associated or risk factors. Then the secondary hypertension occurs because there's another disease, and if you sometimes are able to treat that disease, then the hypertension sort of like goes away, and that's why we call it secondary. All the data that you read refer to the primary hypertension. It's by far the commonest. The data again also shows that younger and younger people, the burden of hypertension in younger people going up. And when we talk about the adult population, we're talking about adults aged between 30 and 79. That's the group from which they got these statistics from.
Okay.
From 30 to 79.
Yeah.
So yes, people are 33, and then sometimes I see them at the clinic and they think, oh, I'm too young to suffer hypertension. Well, this study or this data is coming from that age group, 30 to 79 age group. I think there's a small male gender bias when it comes to hypertension. The statistics also show that.
More men suffer it.
Yes. Than females. That's what the statistics also show. Hypertension is also a silent disease. I mean, that's where the problem really is. Silent disease. So it's not going to give you a fever, a headache, well, until very later on. No diarrhea, no vomiting. The very overt things that we would see with, say, malaria, for which you and I would then promptly seek medical care. Most of the time, it's very insidious, very quietly taking over your body until the very last moment. Besides, Kwame, the way we trivialize headaches in this country is also a big problem. I mean, I do it. Everybody does it. Oh, today I have a headache. The work this week, the workload has been too. But if you really look at it, you've been doing the same kind of work. It hasn't been really any workload. Oh, school reopening is upon us, so there's stress. You know, we always trivialize it. Then you pop some aspirin or pop some cocodamol, and then that's it. And then you try and sleep it off. So all of us trivialize headaches, but a headache can be the only sign that you are hypertensive. So by and large, it's a silent disease. Kwame, hypertension is also one of those things that it's easy, relatively, to diagnose. You don't need a blood test. You don't need to be to any big sophisticated equipment, MRI, CT scan, PET scan, none of those things. But it is one of those things where a simple machine called a blood pressure monitor, or a SFIG for short, is applied to your arm, inflated, and in a minute we can have a result, and we are able to tell. That's what I mean by its relative ease of diagnosis.
Yeah.
So we're not going to look at symptoms, we're not going to ask any questions, but if we follow the guidelines of measurement, and I'll make a few points about the measurement, because I know a lot of people have whipped out their blood pressure machines at home and they're about asking questions about it. Kwame, there are clear-cut guidelines about how to measure or blood pressure. It is very, very important. And you must follow these guidelines properly. I'll just make a few important points. The blood pressure machines these days are all automated ones.
Yeah.
The manual ones have gone out of the system a little bit, but they're very, very useful.
The automated ones, they don't need to be calibrated?
Oh, no, they need to be calibrated. I'm going to come to that. They need to be calibrated.
You mentioned that last week.
Exactly. I'm just going to emphasize that. So there's a manual and then there's the automated blood pressure machines. What we have most of all, what we call the digital machines. So you apply the cuff and then you press. But the individual must be seated in a very relaxed environment. So, Kwame, when you walk through the market sometimes, you find people with these blood pressure machines with all the noise and the individuals screaming for customers to come and purchase their product. Then they are taking their blood pressure at the same time. That is not correct. So the individual must be seated, must be relaxed for about 10 minutes before you even attempt to take the blood pressure.
Okay.
And then once the cuff is applied, the cuff has to be applied properly. It must cover about 2/3 of the arm. There are different cuff sizes. So, Kwame, you look at your biceps, your arm, and then look at Philip's arm. Or where's Abeku? Abeku is a vegetarian. I don't know. You know, so we all have their different arm sizes.
Yeah.
And I'm sure if we look at the female gender, then the differences are even more stark there. You can't use the same cuff for different arm sizes. You'd get different results. So if for children we have children's size, and then for the adults, then we have different sizes because we all come in different sizes. I mean, think about it. If you go to the seamstress or the tailor, do we use one size for all of us? No. So the cuff, you must choose an appropriate size cuff that will cover 2/3 of the arm. Then the arm must be extended and supported. Kwame, where you put the BP monitor, it must be at the same level as the heart. when you gauge with your eye.
Oh.
Right. So the individual is seated preferably, and then their arm is stretched out, and then you apply the cuff, and the BP monitor must be at the same eye level as the heart. And we've all been saying the pledge, so we all know where the heart is, and therefore you can gauge that level. And then you take the blood pressure. I'm reading. The BP machine that you are using must be validated and must be recalibrated regularly, and I'll explain. But when you take the BP machine, if you look behind it or underneath it, there's always a sticker. There are two marks I want everybody to pay attention to. There is something we call the CE mark, which is the European mark of quality, or quality mark. So for a lot of devices sold in the European market, this is the agency that approves or puts a seal of quality or validates it and says that this thing can do what it has been designed to do. Then in the United States, then they have the FDA mark. So these are things, marks that of quality that validate the equipment, for example. Then there's calibration, which is how you relate the readings on the display screen to the actual measured entity. So how do you know, looking at the machine, that the measurement started from 0, and therefore when it gives you a reading of 140, you actually started from 0, and that is why you have 140, and not that you started at 5 and ended up at 140. So that's what the calibration is about. For all those of you who buy fuel, I want you to pay attention to the fuel pump. You'll see a green and white sticker from the GSA, Ghana Standards Authority, that calibrates the fuel pump, because the fuel pump is also a measuring device. So be it weighing scales, BP monitors, thermometers, all measuring devices needs to be periodically calibrated. And if you've got a validated equipment that is being calibrated and calibrated regularly, then you can take the blood pressure and then we can have a conversation.
Okay. Now, let's focus on really preventive strategies, because now we know a lot about it. How do we stray from this? I got a message from my brother Oladipo, who says, my mom died of hypertension at a very youthful age of 48.
Oh.
Am I at risk of that sickness? If yes, what advice will you give me to stay a more fruitful and longer life?
Right. Wonderful question, and my condolences to him. That's a very useful age in the prime of her life. So, Kwame, what do we know again about hypertension? We know that there are some genetic factors at play. We know it is familial. What do we mean by familial? It runs in families. So again, knowing your family medical history is absolutely important. So I'm happy that our friend knows about the mother. So let's talk about prevention strategies. Kwame, first and foremost, you must know whether you are in the risk or the high risk category. So there are risk factors apart from the genetic factors. You can run away from your family, the family you came from, so knowing it's important. If mother and father both are hypertensive, then your chances are very, very high, well above 75%. All right. So then you are in that category. If you push all those things to one side, then we're going to talk about certain things. Number one, diet. So, and with diet, I talk about salt, hidden salts.
Okay.
So, Kwame, sodium, sodium chloride, salts. Yes, sodium is the most important element, chemical element, or electrolyte that contributes to blood pressure levels. Yes. That's why you can't drink seawater. It will just distort what we call your blood chemistry. All right, blood pressure will go up, osmosis and all of those things. So sodium is very important. And salt is sodium chloride. So we must watch our salt intake. In our part of the world, our culinary habits are such that if there's no salt, if there's not a lot of salt, such tasteless food, we say it, because the food is bland. So our salt intake, and what I call the hidden salt, kobe, momone, kako, nani. Kwame, add some.
Nah,
Popcorn, plantain chips. Most processed foods do contain. Kwame, that thing that is in that long container. I don't want to mention the name. It's long container. It's potatoes. Long container.
maybe
You
the
can-
Pringles. And those
yes.
things.
Very salty, my boy. Very, very salty. So we have the concept of hidden salts, where you don't actually see that you are putting salt in there, but then nani, the Kobe. Kwame, the tree of boom, I see.
Because the boom can't go without the Kobe.
Without the Kobe. So there's a
This
way.
one that you are doing like this, like that.
Kwame, you put it in hot water, small, lukewarm water for a bit to try and get a lot of the salt out. And then you don't have to add salt to the stew or to the boom again because
Then it's no longer Kobe.
so you see that is what I mean
they become
by our culinary because what
Cool.
right. So I want all of us to take note of these things. Meat, all right, as compared to fish or other sources of protein. So we should move away from meat or reduce drastically our meat intake, especially processed meat. All right, it also makes a big contribution. And look for other sources of proteins.
Okay.
Proteins, eggs, for example, a good source of protein. You know, there are plant sources of protein as well, the beans and all of those things. So those are the things I want to say about diet. We've also realized that high fruits and high vegetable diets also decreases your risk. Kwame, the way we eat in our country, we don't incorporate a lot of vegetables and fruits. So I remember when we were children, if we are preparing fufu, and then maybe there's some orange or banana, and my father finds you going to eat the banana or something, just give you a knock on your head and say, "Yeah, meaning you are taking you are going to, the orange is going to take up space, or the banana is going to take up space, and we are preparing fufu."
Yeah.
So the way we eat, our dietary habits are such that we don't naturally think that fruits, vegetables must go with our meals. But let us encourage a lot of that. Then exercise or physical inactivity is very, very big. It's a very big problem. So let us start exercising regularly. And the standard is 30 minutes of exercise every day. You know, should do it. Aerobic exercise.
Yeah.
Walking, brisk walking, cycling, swimming, playing tennis. You know, these are things. Jogging if you can, and all of that. So exercise is very, very important. Unfortunately, as we grow older and as we get higher on the social ladder, we tend not to exercise because you are the big man and you should not be seen quote unquote playing around. But exercise is very, very important. So these are some of the preventive tips.
Let me activate the phone lines now. A few questions coming through that I'll share with you. 0302216541. If you have questions, you can call in and ask Dr. Safo or send us a WhatsApp message on 055 1111997. Abena in Adenta says, my dad has had high blood pressure since his university days. We thank God he's still alive at 70.
Right.
My mom has low pressure, which I have inherited. My question is, can the low pressure change to be high? How do I manage the low pressure? Because I hear it's deadly too. And I've stopped all meat products.
Right. So low blood pressure is not common. Very few individuals have that. Sometimes we understand what the cause is. Most times we really do not know the cause. There are some endocrine, hormone-related conditions of a gland called the adrenal gland that can lead to that. If somebody has low blood pressure, we would encourage them every now and then to put a little bit of salt in water and drink to just get their blood pressures up. So the magic number is 100 for the upper reading or the first reading, and then 60 for the lower reading. Nobody should drop below that because it makes you feel lightheaded, a bit woozy when you stand. So he can reach out to the doctor And if we investigate and we don't find a hormonal cause or any other cause, then it'll be one of those things that we really don't understand yet. And then just simple salts should do the trick.
Abuna, there you go. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, welcome, sir. What's your name?
This is Kofi from Afro.
All right, Kofi, go ahead.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening, Kofi.
Dr. Safo mentioned egg. I think that one also will contribute to cholesterol. What about that? So find out for me like this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Right. So when I was talking about the alternatives to meat in terms of it being a protein source, I did mention that, instead of focusing on meat, you can reduce your meat intake and then you can use eggs. Eggs are very healthy. That's always a point that seems to be missed in this whole cholesterol argument. Eggs are very, very healthy. And it is when you're eating too much, then we will think with the yolk, then we think that it's a problem. So I will still stand by it and say eggs are very healthy and don't overindulge.
Okay, thank you. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, hello. What's your name?
I'm Emmanuel.
Emmanuel, go ahead. Let's hear you.
I didn't hear the doctor mention alcohol. I want to find out because we've been hearing that in a lot.
Okay. Okay. You want to find out whether you should stop?
Whether alcohol is one of the causes that increase the hypertension.
Okay. All right. I hear you.
Oh, he's asking for a friend, right? Right. So yes, I did not. You did not hear me mention alcohol, but you're spot on. And we always talk about. So when we talk about diet, we tend to talk about diet and drinks or diet and alcohol. So again, I'll make the statement: if you do not drink already, there is no good reason to start. Alcohol has no health benefits. It's a social phenomenon, makes people happy and sad. So use alcohol responsibly. There's a difference between alcohol use and alcohol abuse. If you abuse alcohol or use alcohol, it increases your risk.
Yeah. Can be brisade.
Philip is listening.
Hello?
Yeah, hello.
Yes, sir. What's your name?
Yeah, Nana, I'm calling from Tema.
All right, Nana, go ahead.
Many a times, when you go to hospital and they diagnose you of BP, they only give you the medicine to go and start with. But they don't actually tell you the cause.
Yeah.
All that they tell you is you have BP and then take this medicine and start with. But I think, can we actually treat the root cause of it? That's the question.
Good. So, Kwame, as we mentioned, I think the issue is twofold. There's an issue about counseling. Immediately a diagnosis is made about hypertension. The individual needs to be counseled thoroughly. And part of the counseling, we try and explain why you have this disease. So we will look at your family history. And then there's a familial component to that. But that familial component is not thoroughly understood yet. We don't know the exact gene, if any, that is responsible for it. But we'll find out in due course. We don't know the cause of the 95% of cases that is primary hypertension. We can't point to something. But we can, to our friend, I say we can point to risk factors, things that increase your risk of developing that. So that can be discussed. Obesity is one of them, smoking, alcohol abuse, and so on and so forth. These are all contributory factors that needs to be discussed. And then once we manage those things, in terms of the care plan, it's not only medicines. See, the focus is too much on medicine. So the care plan involves TLC, therapeutic lifestyle change. You do the diet, you do the exercise, and then we would introduce medicines if necessary.
Absolutely. Lots of questions coming in, but we wouldn't have time for all of it. So please share with us your contact so folks can get in touch with you.
Right. So the number is 0501 477 340. 0501 477 340.
Thank you so much, Doc.